I'll introduce my family here really quick. Let's see if the clicker works. This is my amazing family. I've been married for 7 years, so we pretty much got marriage figured out at this point. You know, like I know it's right around the corner. It'll all be smooth from there on out. I've been married for 7 years, coming up on our 8th anniversary in December, which is incredible. It's crazy to think about. We have 3 young children. This is Fenton. Fenton is 6 years old. He absolutely loves information. So he would memorize stats about, animals to dinosaurs and all these different things. And even when he was young, like 2 or 3 years old, he would absolutely love to sit down and watch a full BBC documentary about animals. He could sit there for an hour and listen to some British guy talk about all the specifics of these animals living in the Sahara or whatever it is. And he listened to so many British documentaries. One year, I took him out to the zoo, and he's losing it, He gets to see all these animals he's only ever seen on video before. And I introduced him to the zebras. And I go, Finn, look, it's a zebra. And he goes, Dad, that's a zebra. What are you talking about? Like, he put his hand on my shoulder like I was embarrassing him. Like, don't you know what the names of the animals are? This is my daughter, Saoirse. She's holding her pink bear. They all wanted to, show off a toy. I said, I'm going to speak somewhere. They're like, okay, well, we have a toy to show. So this is Saoirse. She is 4 years old. She's absolutely incredible. And it's amazing how different your kids are, You always hear that they're all going to be different, but to see those differences kind of play out has been really, really incredible. I was also, even when I was sitting there, they showed the picture of me and my family, and it's amazing how much I miss them. I've been gone for 2 days. And it's funny because I have this really vivid memory of me watching the kids. Deborah's doing something, and I just need to use the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom, and as soon as I close the door, screaming erupts, right? And it's like a horror film. We've got hands coming out underneath the door, And all you want is a moment's peace sometimes, and then as soon as you get a moment's peace, all you want is to be back with your kids. You're just broken, I can't, which one do I want? How do I handle this? This right here is Tallulah. She is our youngest, 2 years old. She's incredible. All my kids are amazing. I told this story. I'm trying to figure out which story I want to tell about her. I showed this picture yesterday, but it made me laugh so hard. This is right before I left. She's playing hide and seek right now. She's terrible at it, okay? I dominate hide and seek in our house, okay? She was also laughing hysterically. And it's just such a sweet moment she'll count, and I'll go hide somewhere, But it's just these little great moments I get to have and experience as a father. It's a privilege to be Deborah's husband. It's a privilege to be their parents. And I'm so excited to be here with you today, but I'm also excited to go back tomorrow after church and see the squad again. All right, so anyway, that's the family, that's me. And I wanted to actually start off with a question. And if you got notes, you can take it, pull out your phone, if you're not watching hockey already or something. And I want you to actually think about how you would answer this question. I'm going to take 30 seconds, a minute, just let us sit. But it's 2 things. First off, this. What would it take for you to consider your life a success? What would it take? And secondly, what would it take for you to consider your life a failure? There's a lot of things we could do with our time here. And it is short. It is so short, our time that we have. What would it take? Consider it a success, consider it a failure. So, I'm going to just stand here for 30 seconds. Think about it, write down your answer if you want to. So this is the question I want to explore, and I'll kind of explore this thought through my story. Unfortunately, some of you ethnos people have already heard it yesterday, but this is what I want to explore. For me, church growing up was just an event. For me, church growing up was something that I did. My parents took me to church on Wednesdays. My parents took me to church on Sundays. That for me was all that Jesus was he was this place that I went to, and you sing songs, and you have to sit. Like, that's it. Count down the minutes till I could leave, right? That's all it was for me. I had amazing parents. Man, faithful parents. Not perfect parents, faithful parents, though. Taught me about His Word, and still, there wasn't just any interest. Homeschooled growing up, and at the age of 16, I graduated early from high school. Graduated early, did 2 years at a college, and got my associate's degree. And while I was in art school, I made a choice for what I wanted. So, okay, got my portfolio together. I'm about to graduate, and I started applying for jobs, and I got a job lined up to start working for, or at least start being trained by Pixar Animation Studios, which is like my dream job. So what I wanted to do, no questions, right? I've got the next 10 years of my life planned out. What am I going to do with my life? I know. A successful life. For me, this point in time, what does success look like? Successful life, I've got a good paying job. Got a nice house. I've got a job that I enjoy, right? Got a nice fence around my house. The car's nice. I knew what I wanted. I knew what the successful life looked like. And it is funny the things that God uses to derail your life plans. Guess what? Is there anything wrong with those things? No. Man, I hope God provides all those things for each and every one of you. But here I am, an 18-year-old, not seeking to enjoy those things only, but seeking to find my purpose there. Seeking to find fulfillment in all these things, in all these earthly things. So, while I'm in art school, I started playing an online video game called Guild Wars. And here's my character. I'm such a nerd, okay? You guys are going to discover that shortly. Playing an online, it's called an MMORPG. And you guys know what that means, okay? But I'm going to explain it for you anyway, all right? So, an MMORPG is a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. And everybody in this has a character. There's this big online community, okay? And in this big online community, you go around, you do quests, and there's like cities and towns where you get to interact with other real players from other places around the world. And as part of this game, you have a guild, hence the name, Guild Wars. So I'm in a guild, and you do things with your team, and I got really, really invested into Guild Wars. Really invested. At my peak, it's always embarrassing telling this. At my peak, I was playing 30 hours a week, right? Essentially almost a full-time job. And I was a pretty big deal in this video game. It had about 4 or 5 million active users when I was playing Guild Wars. And it's such a big universe online that it has its own stock market, its own trading system. And I got really, guys, I'm just trying to get you to understand how impressive this is, okay? I was so impressive in this game. There's this whole virtual trading system, and in this virtual world, I figured out how to leverage it all, and I became one of the top 100, 200 richest people in the entire game of Guild Wars, okay? I had some of the rarest weapons, I had amassed all this wealth, right, virtually. And you know what? Even though I couldn't go buy a cup of coffee with all my virtual wealth, right? It was real to me because I'm investing in it. I'm putting in the time towards this. So one day, I'm at the height of my power, right, in this game. One day, I decided I'm going to go and I need this rare weapon I didn't have off of this German forum. And I don't speak German, but a friend in my guild does. So I drop him a message one day. Hey, you mind picking this weapon up for me? And I give him my username and password for the forum. And the problem is, I use the same username and password for everything. So the next day, wake up, go to my computer. First thing I do in the morning, immediately go to the computer, type in my information, up comes my account, and everything is gone. I'm sitting there on my computer, complete disbelief. I don't even know what to do. Like the number of hours I had poured into this virtual world, I don't even want to know how much time I spent. Don't even want to know how much time I spent. And God taps me on the shoulder. God, tapped me on the shoulder right there in that moment. And like I said before, it is funny the things that God can use to radically change the direction of your life. I already know what I want. I already have the job lined up. I already know what I'm doing over the next 10 years. And God taps you on the shoulder and he goes, essentially, this is what I remember thinking. You lost everything in this video game. And life could be just like this. Just like you lost everything in this virtual world, one day, everything earthly you choose to store up, it's going away too. So I'm sitting there, wrestling through all these things. In America, we call it the American dream, right? And there's a lot of good things that I appreciate about the American dream. But if we're saying that the American dream of health and wealth and prosperity means that we have a more meaningful existence, well, I'm not sure if I believe that. Paul writes to Timothy, it's 2,000 years ago, right? This is what he says to Timothy. He says, guess what? We brought nothing into this world, and guess what we get to take out of it? Nothing. Brought nothing here, you get to take nothing out. And it's funny, God uses something as insignificant and trivial as a video game to illustrate this eternal truth. That while here I am experientially realizing that one day I will leave everything earthly behind, I also still have the rest of my life ahead of me to make choices now. At the very same time all this happens, I never read my Bible, okay, back in the day. And I happen to have a book open in the Bible, Ecclesiastes. And this is how the writer of Ecclesiastes introduces the book. Vanity of vanities, everything is vanity. And you read that, and it's such a weird introduction for a book. Even more so a book in the Bible. Right, okay. Isn't the whole point of Christianity that life has purpose and meaning, And then you have an introduction to a book and he's going, meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Okay, well, which one is it, all right? What's the deal here? And I'm such a success-oriented person, right? I read this and go, obviously the person who wrote these lines was a loser, right? Obviously, this guy failed at everything he attempted, never accomplished anything he set out to do. Obviously, written from the slums of India, right? Written from the guy who just tripped over every possible stone in his path. But what I found fascinating as I kept reading this book, there's no book in the Bible like this. It is so interesting to me. As I kept reading through this book, I discovered the author wasn't a failure. In fact, to the contrary, the author experienced almost an unparalleled level of success. You probably know him. He's the king of Israel, His name's Solomon. And he experienced a level of success that is almost unparalleled in human history. So one of the most successful men to ever walk the face of this earth writes a book. And what does he start it off by saying? He says, vanity of vanities, everything is vanity. And I'm sitting there, an 18-year-old, and it's slowly blowing my mind. I'm sitting there going, wait, what is he saying? So I'm going to take a minute. Let's pause for a second. Let's talk about how successful Solomon was, okay? How successful was Solomon? Do we really need to listen to this guy? 1 Kings 9 through 10 reports this about his wealth. Every year, King Solomon received over 25 tons of gold, 15 in addition to the taxes paid by merchants. So a talent was a measurement of money by weight. A talent weighed roughly 75 U.S. pounds, or 1,094 troy ounces. So at roughly $1,150 per troy ounce in today's market, a talent of gold is worth about $1,258,000. And he received 666 talents of gold a year. So Solomon's base income, not including property, all this stuff, was about $837 million in U.S. currency, right? And with inflation, that could be worth $4 billion in a couple of years, right? So Solomon, really, really wealthy, has a lot of money. 1 Kings 10:23 says this, King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. He's at the peak. And Ecclesiastes 5:10 says this, ready? Again, I'm sitting here, 18, reading this. Solomon says this, whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. $1 billion a year. Not satisfied. As to pleasure, right? Okay, so maybe it's not money, but let's talk about enjoyment of life. As to pleasure, he was a man who denied himself nothing that he desired. Ecclesiastes 2, chapter 3 says this, I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly, my mind still guiding me with wisdom. I wanted to see, what is it good? What is good for people to do under the heavens during the few days of their lives? 2:10, he says this, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. Listen, there were no barriers for Solomon. We live lives that are often determined by barriers. I don't get all the things that I want because I can't afford them, because I don't have the power to take them, right? We have these natural barriers built in because of our circumstances in life. And what Solomon is saying is these were all opened up to him. That there were no limitations for how much of the pleasure he could squeeze out of his existence here. Had it all. And he says this, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind, nothing was gained under the sun. As to accomplishments, right? Maybe work was fulfilling for him. Maybe he did great things. Ecclesiastes 2:4 says this, I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. Here's what he's saying. He is smart. He builds great things. He gets to work with his hands and his mind. He is the one who built God's temple. This is fascinating. In the temple, he used 108,000 talents of gold. Each talent weighs 75 pounds. That is about 8 million pounds of gold. He used 1,017 talents of silver in building God's temple. Roughly 76, these numbers are preposterous. 76 million pounds of silver. I've read estimates on the value of Solomon's temple anywhere from the $100 to the $500 billion mark. What's fascinating is he used so much of the gold that was available at that point in history. Listen, even by today, even calculating all the gold that we've mined up to date, he used 1/30 of the gold that has ever been available to mankind. So only 30 buildings like Solomon's could ever exist in the temple he built. Let's talk about success, guys. Ecclesiastes 2:11 says this, "Yet when I had surveyed all that my hands had done, all that I had toiled to achieve, everything was vanity, meaningless. As to fame," okay, maybe his accomplishments didn't give his life meaning, but he had the praises of men, right? 1 Kings 10:24 says this, "The whole world saw audience with Solomon." Richest king on the planet, probably. Whole world's coming to see. What's Solomon like? Let's hear his wisdom. There's a famous story about the Queen of Sheba. She hears of Solomon's renown. 1 Kings 10:4 says this, "When the Queen of Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon and the palace he had built, the food at his table, the seating of his officials, the attending servants in their robes, his cupbearers and the burnt offerings," it says she was overwhelmed. She's a queen, not unaware of the extravagance of royalty, comes talking to Solomon, can't even believe it, the life that he lives. His servants' robes. Come on. Here is a man who was, in my mind, the definition of success. Listen, this is a missions conference, right? I haven't even talked about missions yet. But I'll tell you what, everything I'm saying right now is what laid the foundation. Listen, if you aren't convinced of something, if you aren't convinced that everything the world has to offer you will one day fade away, then missions is a waste of your time. If you don't believe what we believe, then missions, supporting a missionary, it's like burning away money. Going as a missionary, waste of time if you aren't convinced of the eternal things. So here's Solomon, definition of success. He's got everything I want out of life. He's got fame, he's got money, he's got women, he has fortune, he has respect, he has power, he has the definition of everything that I'm chasing in life. And his point in Ecclesiastes is, guess what? If you're looking for things, if you're looking for purpose here, I'm just telling you, it's not there. So let's say for a minute, right? Let's say for a minute that success was like a mountain. Solomon did something that's almost never been done in all of human history. He reaches the top, right? I'm stalled out somewhere near the bottom, all right? I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of power, okay? So guess what? He reaches the top. And he throws his arm up over the final ledge. And he's standing there, looking over his chariots, looking over his money, the gold, looking at the power he's built. And instead of feeling fulfillment, he feels this overwhelming emptiness. And he sits down and he writes the intro to this book, Vanity of Vanities, Everything is Vanity. I once heard an apologist talking about Solomon. And he put it this way, he said, "The greatest form of weariness does not come in an excess of pain, but the greatest form of weariness comes in an excess of pleasure." And that is such an interesting concept, that Solomon is weary and tired of life, not because of all the pain he's been dealt, because he has ravaged the world of all the good that it offers, and he's still come up short. So at the risk of way oversimplifying the issue at hand, it's like Halloween. If I'm going to make a comparison, Solomon's life is like me in Halloween, because growing up as a kid, there's no greater pursuit as a kid than the pursuit of candy, okay? I'm sure the world has other things to offer me, all right? But candy is where it's at, all right? And I remember Halloween one year, going door to door, and God paves the way, right? Every house, boom, multiple candies, every single house. And I finished it with the mother load, okay? I have 1/30 probably of all the candy ever created up to that point in existence, right? And I go home and I bite into that first Kit Kat. And if I was a 12-year-old philosopher, I have whatever good this world has to offer. It is sitting in front of me right now, okay? And then I ate the whole bag of candy that night. No, I'm 12. I have no self-control. Are you kidding me? It's there for the taking, you guys. Get violently sick to my stomach, end up throwing up everywhere. It's like horrible, I swear I'm never going to ever eat candy ever again by the end of the night. Listen, we're just like that. It's just that the things that we're chasing, instead of it being candy, get bigger or more expensive or more dangerous the older we get. We are so sure the next thing that we're chasing is going to be the thing. If I just get the promotion, right? If I just get the promotion, if I just get the raise, if I just find the right church with the right people, they're not so annoying, if this circumstance in my life changes, we're so sure the next thing we'll finally find the peace that our soul needs. We are so sure of it. The harsh reality is, it's not until we get the things that we're chasing that we realize their emptiness. It's like, man, this isn't like, oh, I just experienced this one time. Man, it's an ongoing reality in my life. Like whenever my eyes get turned somewhere else, and I'm chasing this thing, and I get it, well then, what's next? The harsh thing about the American dream is there's always more. I think we have this misconception that the world has nothing to offer us. That is fundamentally untrue. The world has a lot to offer. It's just not enough. It's not enough to give your soul rest. It's not enough to give your life meaning. It's not enough to give you purpose, but it has a lot to offer. And the fear is that we could just be chasing it, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, not realizing it just goes on forever. There's never an end. And if we were somehow able to find the end, like Solomon did, something that's so hard to do in today's day and age, Solomon reached the ends of it all. And he goes, I'm just telling you guys, it's not here. I like to put it this way. Nothing but God can bear the full weight of the human soul. Listen, Solomon's ultimate conclusion of the book, Ecclesiastes, isn't a book that's really saying life is meaningless. What it's saying is that nothing but God can take that place. And not only can nothing but God take that place, nothing but God is worthy. I'm a big American football fan. You probably aren't a lot of people here who are big in American football, But there's a really famous quarterback in American sports, Tom Brady. In 2007, Tom Brady gave an interview with 60 Minutes. At this time, ready? I think this is incredible. At this time, Tom Brady had 3 Super Bowl wins. His team currently held a perfect 15-0 record, and they would finish the season undefeated at 16-0. something which hadn't been done in 35 years. Some sports writers would refer to this season as the best season ever by a quarterback. The Patriots outscored almost every game by a margin of 2-1. He had just been named Male Athlete of the Year by the Associated Press and was dating a Brazilian supermodel with a salary from the Patriots of $6 million a year. If you don't get my point yet, Tom Brady's life is better than yours, okay? That's just like the harsh reality we all have to face. Okay? And this is the interview he gives. Ready? Oh, sorry. Candy. It's not fulfilling, okay? There we go. Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life. I think, man, it's got to be more than this. I mean, this can't be what it's all cracked up to be. I love playing football and I love being quarterback for this team, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of other parts about me that I'm trying to find. He's called the GOAT now. He's got 6 rings, greatest of all time. Brad Pitt gave an interview with Rolling Stone in 1999. This is what he had to say. He just made his hit Fight Club. He made $17.5 million starring in that. This is what he says. Man, I know all these things are supposed to seem important to us. The car, the condo, our versions of success. But if that's the case, why is the general feeling out there reflecting more impotence and isolation and desperation and loneliness? If you ask me, I say toss all this. You got to find something else. Because all I know is that at this point in time, we are heading for a dead end, a numbing of the soul, a complete atrophy of the spiritual being, and I don't want that. I'm the guy, I just love this line. I'm the guy who's got everything, I know. But once you get everything, then you're just left with yourself. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It doesn't help you sleep any better, and you don't wake up any better because of it. Now, no one's going to want to hear that, but I'm telling you. Listen, Tom Brady has continued to have football success. He's back again for another year. All right? Brad Pitt continues to find box office success. I don't even know if they still feel this way. But I doubt they've been able to shake the feeling entirely. And I think it's absolutely fascinating that a couple of men today, thousands of years after the life of Solomon, seem to feel the same way at the peak of success. That there's this realization that it didn't fulfill what it promised it would. You know, I am been married for 7 years, right? Solomon wrote the book, Song of Solomon, talking about his love. I married the most incredible woman on the planet. Okay? And guess what? She's not enough either. Maybe you found it. Maybe in your marriage you found the person that gives your life meaning and purpose. And guess what? Deborah married me. And I'm not enough for her. We don't complete each other. Like, whatever it is we're chasing, relationships, they're shadows of the ultimate thing. Yes, we're meant. It's a great thing to have a wife, to have a husband that you love. But they aren't enough for you either. So Solomon's got it all. Got the wife, chasing more wives. Right? I think it's 300 by the end of his life. Still not enough. Ecclesiastes 12, 13, 14 says this. So here's his conclusion, right? He's weighing it all up. He's comparing all these things. And what does he conclude? Where does he arrive at? Now, all has been heard. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God, and this last line has always stuck with me. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. 17. or I think it was 18. 18, sitting in my room, reading Ecclesiastes, and I decided to make a list. So I want you guys to help me out here, all right? I made a list of all the eternal things. What in life, is there anything that carries on? So we're talking about all these earthly things that we're going to leave behind. What is it that's eternal? Help me out here. Can anybody throw up a hand? What's eternal? What do you think? The soul. So human soul. Absolutely. Huge, huge, huge. Human soul. What else? God. So, the human soul, God. What else? There's so many things, I'm sure. I'm sure you have a list of things in your mind, you just don't want to share them, okay? I'm sure that's what it is. So God, humanity, what else? Worship? Yeah, absolutely. Our interaction with God. Guess what that has? That has eternal consequence. Absolutely. That's great. What else? His word. Huge. I'm sitting here, 18 years old, and I'm racking my brain. Racking my brain going, all right, what do I put on the list, you know? This is all I could come up with. I wrote God, I wrote people, and I wrote his word. Sitting there. Wrote these 3 things down. And I can't think of another thing. Everything I think of ties into one of these. So I'm going, and you know what the terrifying thing for me was? I was looking at my life. I'm looking at the choices I'm making, and none of it reflects this. So I go, I barely even know God. It's the dude at church, I guess. I pray to him. Christmas and Easter. Whenever my mom pulls me to church on the weekends. People, I've got friends, but they're all shallow. Some shallow friendships. I barely even know God. I don't know his word. I'm sitting there wrestling through all this going, what am I doing? I jokingly say that a midlife crisis at 18. Get it done with, get it out of the way, all right? Hopefully it doesn't come around again for me. So, wisdom is necessitating for me that I listen to Solomon. So Solomon's going, hey, listen, I know a lot of you are on the same path of success. What would it take? Your life to be a success, life to be a failure. I think we've chosen to listen to what earthly success means. And one of my favorite lines from the Bible, Jesus talks about Solomon a couple times. Twice, actually. And the first time he mentions Solomon in the Gospels, it's only to say that he is greater than Solomon. Okay? It's interesting. Second time he mentions Solomon, he says this. Matthew 6:28-29, ready? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, listen to this. This is so good. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. The Israelites knew Solomon. Solomon, the way Jesus is so flippant about this, I absolutely love it. Jesus is like, hey, the richest king to ever exist at this point? Flowers of the field, better dressed than this guy. Do you think Jesus is impressed with the size of his palace? Do you think Jesus is impressed with his chariots, with all the gold he amassed? Listen, the Bible tells us the whole world was created through Jesus. He's not impressed by it. He's not impressed by everything he's amassed. I mean, Jesus made it, dude. You think he's pumped that, oh, yeah, you put all the gold together in one place. It's pretty cool. I made that, okay. And the world has a lot to offer. And the amazing thing is, God's given us the freedom and the joy to use it. Like, what a great thing that, like, I own a Toyota Sienna, right? The best motor carriage ever created by mankind, all right? It's a great thing that I have this. God has allowed me to enjoy it. But the caution for all of us is not that we shouldn't own a house, not that we shouldn't have a car or a nice car, but the caution for all of us is to keep all these things we have in the proper place. Man, I hope the Lord blesses each and every one of you, that you have the things that you want or need, but they're just not enough. And if we're going to exalt them, then Solomon has a cautionary tale for us. That the things we've chased aren't worth it in the end. So Jesus was impressed by something once, and this has also stuck with me. You know, it even says that Jesus was amazed. Jesus was amazed by something. You know what he was amazed by? A Roman centurion sent a servant to Jesus, asking him to perform a miracle. And Jesus says that the Bible says that Jesus was amazed by his faith. Like, whoa. He didn't even feel like he needed to come himself. Send a servant, knowing Jesus can do it. It says Jesus was amazed by that. So we build our earthly kingdom here, right? God's not impressed. God's not impressed by the earthly kingdom that we establish for ourselves. But to those of us who are willing to come to him, even with a mustard seed of faith, that is something incredible to him. That is something. Let's talk about success. The successful life isn't determined by the bank account when we leave. What if we measured success by these little daily steps we can take of faith? What if we measured success by the amount of trust that we would depend upon our Lord? That we would say, not my will, but yours be done. So this was the foundation for me in missions. I had the next 10 years of my life planned out. I knew what I wanted. I knew the kind of person I wanted to be. And God, through this event, through me playing Guild Wars, brought it all crashing down on me. So I had next 10 years of my life planned out. And I decided, you know what? I don't know the Bible. Don't know God. I don't have deep friendships. And I decided I needed to do something about that. I canceled my plans, canceled my 10-year journey, whatever, and I went just to study the Bible somewhere. Not thinking I would go there for, I think I remember saying a semester, a year max, and I'm going to go back to what I was doing, you know. Listen, you don't need to make that choice yourself. It's not like everybody needs to go to Bible school to live the full Christian life. That's not the point. But the point is that any decision we make that is focused on the eternal things is a decision well made. That for those of you who are choosing to set aside time in His Word in the mornings, before your kids are up fighting or whatever it is, man, that is an incredible thing. For those of you at night, even when you're tired and you choose to kneel before your Heavenly Father and talk to Him about your day and to request something, that's something truly impressive. And for those of you who have the hard conversations with friends, who are building community here at the church, there is something there that is meaningful. Something there that's meaningful. And this was the groundwork for me to be involved in missions. Because if you've somehow convinced yourself of all the earthly things the world has to offer, the missions is nothing. I haven't gotten wealthy yet, all right? That was the plan, right? For me to get wealthy in missions. It just didn't work yet, okay? I'm sure it'll happen eventually, okay? So listen, you've got to have these things sorted if you're going to be involved in missions. You've got to have these things. You have to have the eternal things in their rightful place to recognize that whatever money, whatever prayers you offer, or whether you go yourself, I believe it is worth it. As we're going to see here in the next session, we're going to see that God's heart beats and beats and beats through the entire Bible for the nations. That God has a heart that all people would have the opportunity to know Him and to walk with Him. All right, let's pray. Thank you, 7:30, right? Okay, let's pray. God, thank you so much for our first session here, and I pray that as we get into your word, Lord, and start thinking about how you have a heart and desire for all peoples, that you would continue to open up our eyes to your desires and your passion, that you have a passion for reaching the world, that you have a passion for reaching each and every people group with your heart and your desire, Lord. Anyway, I thank you for today, and I pray all this, and amen. All right.